Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are beginning our celebration of Pride Month, like we always do, with a book that I was aware of, but I had never read, and it has not been in print for a very long time. But there was a reprinting of it when I worked at the comic book store, and that book is called Stuck Rubber Baby. It was reprinted by Vertigo at the time, but this is a DC book, John. Did you know that?
Yeah, actually, I did look up I was curious about the history because I thought maybe at first the art was from another one we read, but it wasn't because I didn't realize, okay, we hadn't read anything from Howard Cruz. But yeah,
It's very counterculture, like R. Crumb, you know, that kind of art. This is the kind of thing that I'm like, this is why DC is better. Because Marvel has never published anything even close to this, and never will. Apparently, they don't have any kind of like imprints or want to print other kind of stories other than like superhero stuff, I guess. And every now and then, you know, like Max was a thing for a while. Then they had Icon, which kind of did like crime and stuff like Criminal, and Powers, but they don't have an imprint where you could do this, you know. And that's why I like DC. And this is like from the 90s when they reprinted, or when they originally printed it. So it's like, you know, this is coming out pretty, it's just out there. This is very, in my opinion, this is like a very 90s book to come out, even though it's about the 60s. Because they don't pull any punches. Not like, one thing I like is in this book, it's about a gay man who's closeted during the civil rights movement in Alabama. And I like that they don't sugarcoat anybody. Sometimes people who are good suck that day, and they don't shy away from showing them in a bad light, you know, or even people who are horrible might do something nice. You know, it's like, well, that's because humans are weird and complicated creatures and not perfect.
I agree. If you look at that in the context of like today, a lot of these characters wouldn't stand up as far as like, you know, like, oh, that's a good character, I like him, but he's done these really bad things, so is he truly redeemable or whatever. But in this context, like, it's very much like, just these are these people, you know, everybody is flawed, but there are people going through things that you don't know about, and there are people that are very publicly going through things because of, you know, political or sociological or racist things, and they don't shy away from any of that in this, and that was really good.
Yeah, like, this is my favorite kind of, if you're going to tackle an issue like this, I hate it when they do like the sugar-coated thing where it's just like the bad people are bad, the good people are good. There's like everybody who, like, it's very easy to figure out who's bad, who's good, and they never ever cross. Like, the good people never do anything bad, or if they do, it's like, oh, they didn't mean to, and we understand why. Like in this, sometimes the good people are terrible, or they do fucked up things or whatever. But and you might understand why, but it's still like, oh yeah, that is kind of a horrible thing. Or like you said, we don't know all the inner thoughts of people. So there's people who in this are going through their own things, but we don't know. And then they do something terrible, but, you know, later on we find out what they were going through, and you're like, okay, like, it doesn't excuse what you did, but like, okay, like, that's interesting that happened. I will say this is not a true story. It's based on semi-autobiographical events of Howard Cruz's life, because he grew up a gay man in 60s Alabama, I guess. So, yeah, like, he just used similar, I guess, things. Like, the town that they're all in is not a real town, but it's like close to the one that he grew up in or whatever, you know? So, I guess he didn't want to like call anybody out.
Yeah, the name of the town is Clayfield.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, yeah. So that's like a fictional town, but it's supposed to like resemble the town that he was in and whatnot. So, yeah, this book is also like from the point of view of Toland, our main character, who's kind of telling it to us, the audience, telling his life story to us from like while in his current house, like as he's older. So he's like remembering back on all this stuff from when he was younger. So right away we kind of get like a little bit about his life growing up. We learn, you know, he is like right in the middle of like the 50s and all that stuff, and just seeing like the racism around him. But you know, his parents seem to be fairly not progressive, but they didn't talk about black people. They did not want their kids to call black people the N-word and stuff, and said that like black people are God's creatures too. They might not be the same as us, but they deserve respect. Is that what you got from it, John?
Yeah, so I guess better for the time, but still not like, you know, not the, you know, best people. Yeah,
not you know, not good enough for nowadays, of course, but for the time, you know, pretty good. But and we get introduced to him and his sister, and we find out like this, like once they're older, and the parents died, him and his sister are in the library talking. I was like his dad's library, and apparently his dad had all these books that he never read because their mom wanted their dad to be like smarter or scholarly or something, and so she would just buy lots and lots of books, and he's holding books that are like about atheism and social Darwinism and all this stuff. So I was surprised. I was like, why would you? These are like, you know, somewhat God-fearing Southern folk, and I'm surprised that they would have those kinds of books. Were you surprised by that as well?
Very much so. Yeah, though when he was kind of going through them with his sister, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because his mom, like you said, his mom was like, you know, they're still God's children. So
yeah, and he kind of recounts a little bit about like when he was younger, him and the gardener's son would like wrestle around and stuff, and this is like the beginnings, he thinks, maybe of where like he started to realize he liked boys. He doesn't fully acknowledge it. Like he's not like, well, I don't remember necessarily romantic feelings or sexual feelings, but it felt good to like wrestle around with this boy. And so yeah, but he would, once he kind of realizes maybe I like boys, he tried to be straight. Like that was like, that's one of the ongoing themes about this, is he is torn up about his sexuality, and he doesn't want to give into it. He doesn't like hate himself for it, but he's just like, I wish I was straight, and I really want to be straight so that I can have a family and do the things I'm supposed to do. And he even like kind of falls in love with a girl, and this was like kind of interesting. I don't know, do you think he's bi, or do you think he's fully gay, John?
You know, well, it's possible. You know, there's I don't want to speak from, you know, my heterosexuality.
God damn it, John!
Like,
just say the words. I don't need a caveat. Just say, why do you feel? What do you think?
Yes, he could be, but I also, some people can just form really intimate relationships without being sexual, as well, as what I was going with that.
Right, but they are sexual. So
yes, in this case, they can be sexual, and then but not pleasurable sexual. Like maybe he doesn't quite get either way. I just was saying, it's like, you know, Freddie Mercury had someone that he loved. There's plenty of people that have had someone that they loved, and like that's their person, but maybe they just weren't like, again, like sexually attracted to them.
Yeah, it's kind of like I've known people that are like, I'm pretty much gay in every other way, but I am with a partner who's of the opposite sex, and that's because we gel, but any other person of the opposite sex I do not get along with in that way. Like I don't find sexually attractive or attractive otherwise. So yeah, I'm not sure what it's called. I'm not sure if it's just like a spectrum, but it seems like, I mean, he even said in this, like, I don't know if I'm fully gay, but I definitely like men more than women or whatever. So that's like later on. But we do see him like, as he's discovering what he likes, like what turns him on. He's like trying to fit in. He's trying to buy like dirty magazines and do what a young heterosexual man's supposed to do, date women and stuff. But it's just not working. And he does realize, like, okay, I am a homosexual, because he gets drafted, and then when he fills out his draft card, he's like, it asks, "Are you homosexual?" And he's like, "Yes." So like he's aware enough to say that, and I was surprised. I was like, I would be terrified to tell the government something like that in the '60s. Were you surprised at that?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, but they didn't even seem to care. They're just like, well, you're not fit to serve if you're gay, so get out of here. And I'm like, dude, if that's all it took, I would have been like, yeah, I'm gay. I don't want to get drafted to go to Vietnam. Like, the hell? Yeah, but I guess, it's either that or move to Canada or something, right? Or have flat feet. Or be a senator's son, as the famous song says.
Or bone spurs.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so, it's just about kind of like him in young adolescence through his teenage years and kind of catching us up to the moments when he's a young man and his life is kind of somewhat coming together, but he's still confused about everything. And that's when the civil rights stuff is really taking off. And in the beginning, he's not really into like politics at all or anything. It's just he works at a gas station. He hangs out with people who are more political than he is. And it's kind of like he doesn't really fit in. Like he's a weird kid among them. But the more he like hangs out with these younger kids that are into politics, he's kind of getting into it too. And that's where he meets his first, I guess, the first gay man he's ever met, which is this guy named Sammy, who was in the Navy because he lied about being gay. He comes home and he goes to live in this house that Toland lives in with a couple friends. And Sammy, I guess Sammy doesn't live there initially, but he kind of is around a lot, hanging out with them as he's gotten back. And it's like the first time Toland's ever been around a gay man, I think. And so he's trying to really like, I'm straight. Look how straight I am. Like, yeah, it's interesting to see. And I was telling John, like, this is a very interesting book because it's from the point of view of a gay man and it's about that guy's struggle, but it just happens to be during one of the most like, interesting, but in a like fucked up way, moments of American history, right? So like he's going through all this stuff like in his head, talking to people in the town he's in. It seems like, besides the usual suspects of bigots and stuff, there's a lot of people that you wouldn't think would be tolerant of gay people or black people or whatever that are. Like there's preachers and stuff that are cool with it. Like their kids are gay and they're like, yeah, I mean, they don't really say yes or no anything about it, but it's like they don't care enough to like cut off their son or something,
Yeah, or yell at them or be that bigoted to them, at least outwardly.
Yes, exactly. And so I'd say the person that's the most kind of, it's like a good example of like an average actually bigoted person. Because there's like the obvious, like there's the police and the people that are like, we don't want these people here. And like saying very, horrible things about people. Then there's like Toland's sister and her husband, who's named Orly. And Orly is like it's like the watered down racist guy, right? Like he is racist or he's bigoted, but he is too, it's like in his house or something, Like he would be the kind of guy that's like, I don't care what they do out there with themselves in their own house. I would never go over there. But like, as long as they're not in my house, I guess, or whatever. But he doesn't want them in his town necessarily either. He doesn't want them outwardly flamboyant if it's gay people, or outwardly not happy with their situation if it's black people. So what do you think about Orly?
Yeah, Orly was kind of, yeah, he's the one that definitely like kind of got on my nerves through most of it. I didn't really care for his character. Yeah,
well, you're not supposed to, but I mean, like, he's the character that I think is the person that we meet mostly in our lives. If there's a bigoted person, very rarely are they the stereotypical archetype of like, oh yeah, this person's terrible. This guy just he's like reading it's the town newspaper, but it's the racist newspaper. And he's like, they make some good points sometimes. And like, what about these communists and shit? And it's like, you're overlooking a lot of stuff to try to like, I guess, I don't know what that's called. Like, give a fair assessment or something to what they're saying. Give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess. But it's like he agrees with them, but it's like he's not like evil, I guess you could say. He's just a bad person, if that makes sense.
And he's reading something and being like, oh, that makes a good point, and like not like going any further into it.
Yeah, and it's agreeing with his views, so he's like, yeah, I don't need to judge any of this stuff. So obviously Toland has to be, closeted around him for sure. And then, but the more Toland hangs out with, his, this girl named Ginger that he's kind of getting a crush on, or he wants to get a crush on, is more what it's like. Like, he's supposed to like a girl. So this one is a very interesting girl that he does kind of have an attraction to. And her name's Ginger. And Ginger and her friends go to like the black bars that are also, some of them are gay bars. Some, like, it was interesting to see when the dominant culture is so against anything that's not it, all of the sectional stuff like kind of gets together under one roof, which I don't think happens as much anymore. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it's more separated now. Like, I've seen more people like arguing, like more groups arguing about stuff to try to separate themselves than to just be like, we're all against those people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it depends what the cause is, but definitely for this, like, it definitely seems more like, yeah, these are multiple marginalized groups that like are much more accepting of each other than like the other parts of the population. So it's like Toland is seeing that like, oh, like I am more accepted and fitting in here in the black community than like with white people.
Right. And I mean, kind of. I mean, he's not really unaccepted because no one knows he's gay. Even his friends at this time don't know he's gay. But
yeah,
he does know that if he was out, they definitely would not accept him. So yeah, he's just kind of getting more ingratiated in the culture. We find out like he finds out about a gay bar. He finds out about actually two gay bars, but one's like the one in town that everybody knows about, and one's like the outside bar that's like owned by two black women who are lesbians, and they're like, it's more, since it's outside of town, it can be like more raucous, we'll say, or whatever. But or at least that's what it seemed like. Is that what you got from it?
Yeah, it made me think like that's the one where that way everybody parties a little harder.
Yeah, exactly. It's open a little later. People can meet up there and stuff. We do see like scenes where they have like a red light at one of the bars that like goes off if police show up, because they have laws that say like men and women can't dance with the same sex or whatever. So even if like two friends who were girls were dancing, you could get arrested for that, even if you're not gay. So they're like, this red light would flash and they would switch partners like immediately, and then the cops would come in and then be like, oh, I guess no gay dancing here, and then like leave. So it was interesting to see like this whole like underground culture that was blossoming under this really stifling main culture or whatever. I don't know. It's a different dynamic than stuff that happens now, because like there is a main culture, right? There's a dominant culture, but it's not like the underground culture isn't really underground like this is, at least in my head. Do you have any views on that as far as like, or does it feel like that to you? Like, I feel like the underground stuff is just as out there as anything else is nowadays.
Yeah, I think that's kind of because like this time it was much less accepted, and now that a lot of that is more mainstream, and a lot of that people are learned on, and like you learn about people's differences, and like you accept people and not are like these bigoted people. I think more and more of that's grown out. So now a lot of that what was underground culture is now like it's just part of normal culture. It's part of everyday life. So
right, yeah, it is. But even like. I wonder if they like if people miss that though, like because it does feel like you're on the cutting edge, if you're on this, if you're in this culture that is going so hard against, and no one, like it's like a secret that no one else knows about kind of thing. Obviously that has its pluses and minuses, but I wonder if that's like if that's a thing that like people miss or talk, kind of like like punk, when punk was punk in like the late 70s, and then there's Green Day, and it's like we're happy that like this fast paced music is popular, but there's something missing a little bit,
What did we lose along the way?
Yeah, I don't know. You lose the edge, and I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know. I just think about that kind of stuff. Like, is there anything lost? But obviously, it's better if you can be out in the open and not have to worry about stuff. So,
yeah, I was gonna say for something like that, I think the pros outweigh the cons of like being accepted in society as opposed to like punk rock music and.
Yeah, it's a different thing too. I mean, I guess punk rock would be included in like some of these subcultures and whatnot that are going on, but
yeah, that's true. They're just the anti against whoever the man is putting down, quote unquote. And so if the man is being racist or homophobic, like, well, fuck that guy. Like we're against him too. So yeah, I guess it was all just start to, like you said, all those marginalized and underground communities, like they can start to blur and like fight together.
So through Toland's life, we're seeing him and Ginger getting more serious. Like there's moments where it's kind of interesting because they're dating, but they never actually have sex for a long time in their relationship. And was interesting to me that she never like, I don't know, brought it up. Maybe she just thought Toland was, like a late bloomer or something, But Ginger never really brings up that they've never had sex, even though they're kind of dating pretty much. And actually, I don't know the whole time frame of this comic. It seems everything kind of happens quickly, but it's all from, memories that just kind of jump to chapters. So I don't know how long their relationship was, but it seemed like, months pass at least. And they're together, and it's never once brought up that they've never had sex or he's never initiated any kind of stuff. There was one moment where they're in like a tree house and they kind of make out a bit, but he was like, thank God it didn't get far enough to go further than that, because I didn't know what I was going to do. Like, but that's like the only time there was any kind of like physical relationship going on there. And I will tell, like John and me were talking about this before, there are so many characters in this book because, everybody's got kind of a little side story going on, but there's like, the main characters are Toland, who's the main guy telling the story. There's Sammy, who's the sailor, who is a piano player who is gay. And then there is Ginger, his girlfriend, Toland's girlfriend. So, and all the other characters are kind of side things. I mean, sometimes Toland's sister is important and whatnot.
Yeah, that's Melanie. It's Melanie, and we already said Orly, her husband.
Yeah. So, but for the most part, we're just kind of following the day in and day out of like what happens to, like what these kind of, minority classes have to go through every day just to have a good time or just to hang out or whatever. The harassment that they go to, if they hang out at night, they got to deal with this stuff happening, or cops or whatever. The KKK is out in force and doing things.
I was gonna say they do a really good. He does a really good job putting in the extra elements and or specifics of time too. Like he mentioned like reading a book about Emmett Till and like how and seeing photos from that, and like that really like impacted how he thought about people, kind of changed some things. And then like they mentioned the Baptist church bombings in Birmingham. So like, yeah. And then, like you said, like the KKK are become prevalent in this for a bit. So it's definitely bringing in all those elements of things that, you know, for the time. Yeah.
And those are all affecting people he's met in his journey. But he, being a white man, is not going through anything specifically from the KKK. So that's why I was like, this is a very, like, we could have read this book for Black History Month too. And it would also fit, but it's because it's from the point of view of a white man who's got his own shit going on, and then the backdrop is this racial, social unrest and everything. It's kind of a interesting viewpoint of that whole civil rights movement. Yeah, I really liked it though. It was a cool way to like enter that historical part of American history, or like that part of American history, because most of the time you just see it like straight up, like it's a story about a black person or what these certain people went through directly, you know, that are being affected by the cops directly. But this guy, no one knows he's gay. He's kind of struggling with that internally, and it's about his internal struggle. And it just so happens the civil rights movement is going on around him, and he's like joining in, fighting against the injustices and whatnot. Speaking of injustices, there are many times in this comic where, you know, the KKK comes and just kills a black person, or does something like, I think there was like an initiation scene that was pretty horrific where the KKK just came into a local grocer's store in the black part of town, and like, I don't know, I guess they killed him, but they supposedly, according to this, cut off his nuts, his testicles, and I assume he bled to death, or they just killed him as well. But they did that in front of his son, which is pretty horrific. So they didn't shy away from any of that stuff going on at the time, or didn't try to hide that or not hide it, but they didn't like put any of that back on the back burner to like focus on Toland the whole time. So did you like the kind of juxtaposition that they would give time to those moments and let you kind of be with Toland in those scenes as well?
I think so, because I think it really gives his, you know, it gives his story again, like, because he's going through something silently while all of this stuff around him is happening that he is fighting in as well, like with these other groups, as you know, especially the black community. So it's like he's seeing them be repressed, and he's hiding it because he doesn't want to be repressed too. So it gives it kind of like a little more weight, I think, too, even.
Yeah. You understand where he's coming from, and he is like joining in. He's getting more and more involved in like the marching and stuff. He actually goes to like the March on Washington. He's going to demonstrations in the park in their town, to like against the police and stuff like that. So he is getting more involved. Now his relationship with Ginger is also kind of taking off as well. She and him have an actual night where they are about to have sex, and the kind of, I was always like, what the fuck is the name of this book about, right? Because it's called Stuck Rubber Baby, and we find out what it is because he's had this condom in his wallet since he was 14 or whatever, and he's like in his 20s now, so obviously that condom is not good anymore, but he doesn't know because he's never had sex, and so he's about to have sex with Ginger. They're making out. It's getting hot and heavy. He opens the condom and it's stuck together. Like he can't do it. So it's stuck together. And the first time it's stuck together, or the first time this happens, they're like, oh, I guess we won't have sex because neither of us are drunk enough or whatever, or like into it enough to have that matter. But then of course, like as he's trying to put the condom on, you know, he can't maintain and all that stuff. So she's like, it's fine. But then this is where he tells her he's gay. And that's kind of like an interesting moment in their relationship, because you would just kind of assume she'd be like, okay, well, we're done then or whatever. But she is part of these, group of people that is like all for civil rights and all that stuff. So she's understanding of him. But it's also like, it's interesting because it's like we understand from his point of view because we're following his story, and it's really sad. But she gets like mad. She's like, "Look, I'm not here to like I thought we were a thing, and I'm not here to like be the girl to make you straight or whatever." Like she is in the right, but the way that she's saying it is kind of straightforward and not like sugarcoating anything.
Yeah, didn't she say like she's not gonna like quote unquote cure him?
Yeah,
like that's.
Yeah, so like, I mean, she does tell him straight, so to speak, and so like, yeah, like their relationship's kind of in a weird spot. He gets depressed for a while, but he's still hanging out with people and whatnot, and like all their friends that are all friends together. They all eventually they get like the big like moment where they go to the park where there's like some kind of protest going on, and they like that's where they get seen by everybody in town. And that's kind of the moment where people know now that Toland is hanging out with those people. And, so it's like known now that Toland is part of this group of people. And, we get scenes where like Orly, his brother-in-law, is like you better watch out who you're hanging out with. People notice stuff, and he actually gets arrested one night, because he was like hanging out with, is it Sammy he's hanging out with? Someone he's hanging out with.
Yeah.
I think it's Sammy, yeah. Someone gets arrested that he knows. And so he gets arrested because he goes to bail that guy out, and they had been drinking, and then the cops are like, "Oh, you're with this gay guy, huh?" I think it is Sammy that they originally arrest. So like, "Oh, this guy's gay. You're his friend who's coming to bail him out, huh? Well, you look kind of drunk too. Why don't you walk this line?" And I wasn't sure if he actually was drunk or if that was just them being dicks. So what'd you think?
I think they were just being dicks. I didn't take it as him actually being drunk. Okay,
because he had been drinking that night. I just didn't know how late, how much time had been between him going to bed or going home and dealing with that. So, but his sister, he calls his sister, and she's able to get him out of the drunk tank. And that's where Orly's like, "You better watch out who you're hanging out with. You don't want to get involved with anybody that like, people might talk about it if they see you hanging out with those people." So Orly's just being, himself. And but yeah, but everybody still thinks that like Ginger and Toland are still together, or at least they're a thing. So eventually their relationship grows to where they do end up having sex. It's after like the March on Washington and stuff. There's all this things that happen that kind of lead to that, where they're like, since he's still in the movement, even though like, because it could have been like, oh, he's just in the movement for Ginger. But it's like, no, he actually believes in all this stuff. So he goes out and does it on his own, even without her. And so it kind of like, I think shows her like he's a good guy. And I don't know, there is something there it's not just like he's faking it for her to try to pretend like he's straight or some shit. And so eventually they do have sex. And this time it's like, he doesn't have the condom because the condom was stuck with rubber. So they just do it in a moment of passion, and she gets pregnant. So that's the stuck rubber baby, because he didn't have a condom. So that's what that's about. That's why it's called that. And yeah, in the background, we're seeing, after that happens, like Sammy, he's the piano guy at the church, but he's also gay. He's getting more and more like threats from people in town because he's getting more and more vocal. Like he actually there's a bombing that happens, and he yells at everybody. Like in the cameras, he like face first in the camera says, the the police did this. Like the KKK, they're all in on it. You know, they don't like us because we're gay or we're black or whatever. You know, so Sammy's not black, but he's just saying like, you know, he's just fed up with them, and he kind of exposes them, and so now he's like a target. So finally, like once Ginger finds out that she's pregnant, that just adds another weird layer to the relationship, and it kind of goes back. That's one thing about this is like, because he's gay and she knows it, even though there's something there between them, like it's hard for both of them to figure out what's going on. But when she finds out she's pregnant, it's like another wrench in the gears, because he's kind of like, well, maybe I do want a kid, because it might be the last time I have a kid, because if I'm gay, I'm not going to like sleep with a bunch of other women. So it might be the only time I'm available to have a kid or able to have a kid. And then there's like the thought of like, well, he'll be like, you know, he's raised to take responsibility if that happens. So he's like, yeah, I'll be the dad or whatever. But she is a musician. She wants to go to New York, be the next Joan Baez or whatever, you know, be a guitar. I don't know what's that called, that type of music, like folk music, but if it's like a woman singer, I don't know.
Well, I mean, like, I guess I don't think it would just be folk. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, singer-songwriter stuff, I guess, is what it would be like today, but political singer-songwriter stuff. So he's kind of tore up about what to do. She is as well. Also, to throw another, you know, wrench in the gears is he tells his sister about it, and she's like, oh my God, like me and Orly have been trying to have a kid, and we can't for some reason. So like, maybe we could raise your baby. We could just adopt it. Wouldn't that be great? And, you know, Toland's like, yeah, that is an option. That's not bad. But Ginger's not into that, of course, because, I mean, not only would it be like, okay, I gotta, you know, it's in my life, but it's not in my life. Like, how does that work? It would also be like, well, now I'm giving my baby to Orly, who's a horrible bigot. So I don't want my kid to be learning life lessons from that guy.
Yeah, that was exactly my first thought. I was like, oh, she got good intentions, but Orly's a piece of crap. So.
Yeah, but you know, all these people had bigoted parents for the most part. So, you know, I think when when the kids of people tend to go the opposite of their parents or whatever, generally. So yeah, but either way, so there's kind of like a up in the air thing with that going on, and then we do see Toland gets his first time with a man. There's this guy named Les who's he's like friends with Sammy, but he's the pastor's son, right?
Yeah, he's the son of the preacher. He's Lester Pepper and Harlan Pepper. That part made me laugh because Harlan Pepper is the name of one of my favorite characters from Best in Show, so I immediately like latched onto that. Oh,
okay, yeah. So Les and him have a romantic night where they sleep together. It's the first time he's been with a man. He's like, that was amazing. Can't get it out of my head. I think I love this guy, actually. So that just kind of confuses him more. But even like Les is like, you don't love me, man. Like, it's because it's the first time you've ever been with a guy. So that's why. That's why you feel like that. But don't worry, you know. So because of that, like, and I kind of an interesting moment here when, like, the day after Les or Toland has that moment with Les, or that night with Les, he like immediately, the first thing he does, he tries to call Ginger and be like, tell her like, hey, I had this moment with this guy. She can't be reached, so he calls his sister and has breakfast with her, and he's like, hey, okay, a couple things. Oh, this is where he tells his sister, you know, Ginger's pregnant. Also, I'm gay. Like, so there's like two big bombs dropped on her. And this is like, his sister goes a little bit crazy here because she is so wanting a baby. And she's like, this is kind of like the only chance I can see that happening. And so one thing that happens, like Orly and her, I guess, have a talk. And they're like, yeah, we will take the baby. So they go to Toland's house, and they just, like, Toland lives with like 3 other people. Sammy's there, a couple other roommates who don't know anything about this, and like him and Ginger having being pregnant or any of that stuff. So they just walk in and assume everybody knows, and they're like, we want your baby, we'll take your baby. And it just ruins the whole everything for Ginger there. Everybody's being
the baby.
yeah, it's like a big surprise to everybody. And so one of the more, I mean, this whole book is full of moments that's like really hard hitting, but one of the more hard hitting moments to me was when, so everybody still thinks Toland is straight, except Bless, obviously, and Toland's sister and Ginger. So out of all of his friends, Sammy, the gay guy, does not know that Toland is gay. And Sammy's mad when he finds out that Toland and Ginger are pregnant. So he goes off on his own, and Toland goes to talk to him. And Sammy has this kind of like one-on-one with him where he's like it's just not fair, basically. Like, you don't realize how lucky you are. I wish I could have kids, but I'm straighter, or I'm gayer than anybody I know. I don't want to have sex with a woman, so that's never going to happen. And he's having like this moment. It's very like sad, but it's also like, if only Toland just said, I'm gay too, like it might help, but he is still too like, not ashamed, but like, I don't know, he's scared of it still,
Yeah, I think so, because especially with a longtime friend, it's like, and then the baby thing that just dropped, like, is he, can he handle another piece of news? So
yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on. So Sammy's kind of torn up about all this stuff. He also got fired recently because of that news program, or that news broadcast where he like yelled and called out people by name in the city that are bigots and prejudiced and stuff. So he got fired from the church because they found out that he was, well, the church already knew he was gay, but once everybody else knew he was gay, the church had to be like, well, we're going to get calls about it, so we have to let you go. So Sammy does something. He goes on a trip with Toland to his dad's house. Apparently his dad and him had a falling out, but his dad's super rich. So Sammy's like, you know what? I'm going to go there, tell him basically like you never have to see me again. Just buy me a fucking piano and like buy me off, and you'll never have to see me again, and I'll be out of your life. So he goes there to like do this, or give this like ultimatum to his dad, but his dad is like in a not vegetative state, but he's had a stroke and he can't talk. He can only like read. He's kind of like the guy with the bell, Salamanca in Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
where he can't talk, but he can kind of understand what people are saying to him. And so obviously he doesn't get any answers from his dad because his dad can't talk, but his dad's wife says like she'll talk it over with the dad, and apparently there is a way that she can get answers. So she'll respond if he says, give him the money and get him out of my life. So,
I just wanted to say I really did enjoy those pages as well, because it starts off him like talking to his dad, and then he's getting more and more frantic because obviously he can't get any feedback from his dad. So the pages, it's the same frame of the dad and just the blank or like quizzical kind of expression, but then it just gets more and more full of him talking to his dad. I just enjoy the way that was like displayed on the page. Yeah,
it's really good, really well done. But this puts Sammy in a mood. When he comes back, he's riding high, but I think he's realizing that he's just kind of burned every bridge he has, and he has nothing left to lose except, I guess, his life or whatever. But he's kind of on the edge right now, right? So he gets drunk that night, and he tells Toland, look, let's go out for a drive. I want to show you something. And Toland's like, I guess so, we can go. And this is also right before they go, Sammy kisses Toland and says like, come on, let me show you like how good I can be. Like, I know you're straight, buddy, but like if I start kissing you and stuff, you're not going to care. And I'm not sure exactly why. I guess Toland is just torn up inside about everything with the baby, and he doesn't know what's going to happen with Ginger and all that. But he kind of refuses Sammy, and this kind of leads to Sammy being like, let's go on this drive. And Toland thinks he's going to take him somewhere like special or something that meaningful, but Sammy takes them to the headquarters of the newspaper, the local racist newspaper, and he knocks on the door and he says, like, hey, I'm here. Like, you guys suck. like, now we know where you're at and all this stuff. If you know who I am now, if you want to like take me on, you can come to my address. And he tells them his address and all this stuff. And so they tell him to like get off the property, and they yell bad words at him and stuff. But this ends up leading to later that night, after they go home and they sleep it off, Toland wakes up to a noise, and he gets knocked out by someone hitting him over the head with a baton. And then when he wakes up, he hears some screaming, and he goes into the woods next to the house, and it's his roommates are screaming because Sammy is hanging from a tree, and he's got a sign on him that says, N-word loving queer. And so it's like a hate crime. You get lynched. And because, he gave his address to those guys, basically what it kind of was alluding to. So, and this was like the big moments in his life kind of thing. Like all of these were big moments, but this one really affected Toland because he actually ran into the body of Sammy hanging. He didn't see it through the trees, as he's running. And he just like, the legs of Sammy like hit him in the face, and so he was really like affected by that. What do you think about this whole part?
Yeah, I knew something bad was going to happen, but I didn't know that it was going to end with his death. So I thought maybe he was just going to get roughed up really bad or something. It was, I don't know. I guess I should expect the worst from this time period anyway. But it was really, it was crazy. It was hard to I felt right away from it. I was like, he's been such a longtime friend, and then also like keeping that secret from him. And
it's kind of like, he could have said like, I'm gay too.
Who knows what that might have done with that relationship, as far as like, I'm not even saying like that, it just made it easier, and like, maybe Sammy wouldn't have felt alone in that situation. Yeah.
And I'm sure he lives with that, right? Like Toland lives with that. So it was a very powerful moment, that whole scene. So, of course, Toland goes to the cops, but the cops are probably the people who did it. So nothing happens from that. And then basically we find out Toland, wants to go live his life. Him and Ginger didn't end up getting together. Ginger gave up their child. He did get to meet his daughter once because she went to go live in some kind of adoption house that would like house the mother until they gave birth. So once she gave birth, then Toland could come visit, and met the daughter once. And so he did get to meet his daughter. And, but there's just a whole life at the end. Like one of the last pages is just like everything he went through in his whole life, kind of all the trauma in like one big ball of panels that was really messed up and affected him. And he gives this speech that's like all that trauma and emotion at Sammy's funeral or memorial, because he couldn't go to the funeral because Sammy's parents didn't want any of his hippie, gay people, black people coming to the funeral. So they just had to have a memorial at one of the local bars, like underground bars that they used to go to. So yeah, it's a very touching moment when he's remembering all this trauma, and it all comes out like in one thing. And then there's pretty much everything just goes normal. He eventually, as we know, because he's telling the story from the comfort of his current house with his current partner, he does grow up. He finds a man that he's in love with, and they live together. Ginger goes off to become a musician, and he actually like did go to see her in concert, but he didn't go to talk to her because he didn't want to stir any stuff up with that. And then there's one thing that's kind of left hanging, and it's a weird thing to include. I don't know what you thought about this, John, but so after Sammy gets killed, Toland goes to talk to his sister, and his sister's like, I kicked Orly out. We are getting a divorce. I can't live with that man. He told me something that I can't live with or whatever. We don't know what that is for a while, but at the end of the book, we find out that so later, like maybe 10 years later or whatever, Toland is in San Francisco. He's part of the hippie movement. He sees a man who's like, hey, Toland, what's up? And he's like, I don't know who you are, dude. And the guy's like, it's me, Orly. And he's like, he looks like, what's his name? Is it Crosby from Crosby, Stills and Nash?
Crosby, Stills and Nash, yes.
Yeah. He looks like that guy. Yeah, like a big white bushy mustache with mutton chops and long hair. And he's like, yeah, dude, it's me. It's Orly. So Orly apparently got divorced from his sister and went full counterculture. But as they're talking, Orly's like, look, I got to own up to something. I killed Sammy. And Toland's like, what? And he's like, no, I mean, like, I didn't actually kill him, but like, I at some point in time, I can't remember where, back in the like way back before, it was before Sammy had made himself known in that news segment, where he like said, I'm going after you people or whatever, or we're sick and tired of this. He apparently, Orly had made some calls to people he knew in the town that, you know, this is where that guy lives or whatever, you know, that this is who that guy is. And so he's felt guilty about that, but he didn't actually like do it, you know? So I don't know. What did you think about this whole inclusion of Orly being a hippie and feeling bad about what he did, whatever part he did play in Sammy dying? Because at the same time, you could say that Toland had a part in Sammy dying because he wouldn't he wouldn't tell him, he wouldn't open up to him kind of thing, you know? So it's like, yes, Orly did something bad, but Sammy kind of went to their house and told them where he lived. So I don't know how much it actually mattered at that point.
Yeah, I feel like at the end of that, it was the closest person to him that could have stopped that. At least, yeah, from that getting to that point would have been Toland. So, I mean, while Orly, again, was kind of a piece of crap and through all this, it was interesting. I didn't see him being the counterculture at the end and be like, what's up, man? Like you said, like the big crazy hair and whatnot. So it was unexpected and surprising and not character redeeming, but more of like, well, I mean, I guess people can change and can, like, for lack of a better term, grow up in a sense, you know.
Yeah, but they have to do it in their own time.
Yeah,
like that was kind of like the thing of this is like, you can't do it until you're ready. Whether you're a piece of shit, you know, racist guy who becomes unracist, no one telling you to your face like you're a bigot or whatever and yelling at you made Orly that. Apparently, Orly went through some shit and thought about it and was like, you know what? I don't agree with any of that anymore. You know, like, and Toland kind of had to do the same thing where he's like, I'm gay, but I don't want to be. I'm going through this inner turmoil. Now, Toland's only dealt with himself, so it was a little, as far as like, you know, he's not hurting. No one's dying or getting, you know, physically hurt from it, but, or potentially hurt from it. Although Ginger, you know, she's going through emotional stuff or whatever, right? So, this comic does show, like I said, even horrible people or good people, they're just people. They do bad things. They make bad decisions. They make good decisions, you know, so that's one thing I liked about this book a lot. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, we end with Toland, like, going out to look at, like, on his balcony to watch snowfall. And it seems like he's got a pretty good life with his lover now. And that's it. So John, what would you give it, and what'd you think?
I liked it a lot. I think it was really good at showcasing, you know, like the silent struggle and the outward struggles going on at the same time. And again, both, you know, like you have these two marginalized groups you have gay people or, you know, people of the LGBTQ group, and then you have the 1960s or 50s and 60s with the racial injustice going on. And so you have those two things going on, and you can see the parallels, and it does a really good job of like building on that. And then also in particular, then his story with that. And like you said, how they're just, everybody's normal people. Everybody's going through different things at different times. And, you know, until you're ready to accept and until you're ready to have that thing, to have that realization of, you know, when you take the next right step in your life, it's shitty things happen. And so it was a really good read. And
a really long read too.
Yes, I will say that. So we did last month for our special, we did Monster, which was quite a long read too. But I will say Monster, I read the whole way through this one. I definitely had to take a little break in the middle, but it was still really good. And I like the art. It's fun. It made it enough. I thought it was like you said, a different author when we first started. I thought maybe I recognized it, but I guess it's that kind of caricature style. So he does, I guess there's some similar ones that maybe like,
it's like old comics from the 70s styles, kind of what that is.
Yeah, but it's nice because I like that for the tone of this as well. I think it fits really well. So and then being in black and white, it still had a lot of really great detail, and it wasn't everything from backgrounds to the people themselves, like everything had a good level of detail. And so it was really good. So overall, I think I would give this one, I think I'd give it a 7. It was a really solid story.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to give this one an 8. I liked it a lot. It is like one of those books that I think, would be a good, like a book you would read in senior year of high school, first couple of years of college, one of those,
Mm-hmm.
And do like, this is a good analysis of kind of what it was like in the 70s or in the 60s during civil rights and all that stuff and before. And then like looking at different viewpoints of minorities and stuff. I think it's like a book that no one talks about either. Like I have never heard anyone mention this book. And I'm like, this is definitely up there with some of those, groundbreaking books that should be talked about in school and stuff. I liked it a lot. It was long. It did take me about 5 hours to read, which I was surprised because it's only 200 pages. So, it was dense is what it was. There was a lot of panels,
a lot of side characters,
a lot of storylines, a lot of panels on each page, and a lot of dialogue and inner thoughts from Toland kind of telling you the story. So a lot going on, but it was well worth it. I thought it was good. I definitely want to actually like pick this up in hardcover and have it in my library. Because like I said, no one talks about it. So I don't know if it'll get like another printing for a while.
That's true. And I agree. I think it would be a good one. Like I would definitely go back and revisit. And like, I would tell like, probably like you said, like right around like end of high school, like, oh, this is a really good, like you've learned about a lot of this stuff. Well, this is a really good, like it's fiction, but bringing in a lot of that stuff that you from that time and like kind of giving it a little extra heavy story to read like from that perspective. Yeah.
And also all of it feels like I thought halfway through it, I was like, maybe this is all real. Like I was like, do I need to look this town up and check like what did that motel get bombed or did this guy get killed at that time? So like it fit really well in, even though it is fiction, it fit really well into the time period, feeling and all that stuff of what was going on then. So, I give it an 8, you give it a 7. John, what titles are we reading, or are our patrons going to be able to choose for the poll this week or this month?
So our patrons get to choose every month from a poll for our second episode of the month for all of our listeners, and they also get a special exclusive episode just for patrons. So that sounds like something you're interested in. www.patreon.com/Planes, Trades, and Comic Books. And this month, celebrating Pride, we've got 4 to choose from. We've got Alan Scott's Green Lantern, The Conjuring, The Lover, When I Arrived at the Castle, and Carmilla, the First Vampire. So a couple horror ones in there for sure.
Yeah. I actually read, I was the one who was like, throw in The Lover there, The Conjuring, The Lover, because I did not, it was like a secret LGBTQ book and I enjoyed it, so I was like, oh, I want to see what you have to say about that if it wins. So and just want to say thank you to our patrons: Hoku, Otaku, Mike, Christian, Kalia, Kevin, James, Craig, Leroy, and Michael. You guys are awesome. We appreciate you. You guys keep the lights on, and definitely go vote on that poll if any of those sounded interesting to you. And with that, we'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye.